And we continue learning Dirshu Mishna Berurah Hilchos Nesias Kapayim Siman Kof Chav Ches, and we pick it up from Siv Chavav. Teaches the Mechaber Bisha at the time, and as we turn over the page, Bisha Shemevarchin at the time of the bracha, of the blessing, Ein Loimar Shom Pasuk, you should not say anything. El Yishtiku V'Chavnu LeBracha. The Israelim, what do? We're quiet and we have kavana for the bracha. Says the Rama. Nowadays, says the Rama, for the minhag of Ashkenazim, now that the Kohanim are Meirich and they're singing, we say Psukim as well. Just like by Baruch Hu, it's better. So a fascinating halacha that says the Rama, we say Psukim because the Kohanim are sitting there and singing away, but it's better not to. So says the Mishnah Berurah, if Kotin Kov Beis Ein Leimer, the Klom Yeshavim Mevarchim Seveinu Mazin. Could it make any sense that the Evid is getting a bracha and he's not listening? But so it's better Shaloi Leimer Seveinu Kov Gimel V'chein Kazu Achrayim the Cheinik Kazu Magen Rav Taz Daim Ram Yomer B'Shasha Shliach Sibur Makal Lefnei Kohanim. So these psukim you should say when the Shliach Sibur is calling the Kohanim. Veli Rav Me Gam Gim Gambas. Even on this he argues. Ayin Sham. V'chein Li'agrash Leim Leimer Meisarav quotes the Mishnah Berurah that the guy did not say any psukim during Birchas Kohanim. Mikol Shekin Shish Nizar Shlomer Psukim Bakol, don't say them out loud. Like some people do, but from certainly Yisraelim to say the words Yirecha, etc. That's a mistake. Nowhere do we find such a minhag. So before we move on, let's just take a moment to look at the Dirshu over here. Says the Dirshu, number 102. It says the Dirshu, this is the reason I'm so near as Kaddish and Kedusha Baruch Hu, any of the bracha in the middle of Baruch Kohanim. Says Yisrael Mizaman, don't answer. Why? Because the king is blessing you. What are you doing? You hear Baruch Hu, you hear this, you hear that. You're in the middle of the king himself giving you a bracha. And it's not compared to Krishmash when Esrei that we would stop to listen to Kaddish and Kedusha. Why? Because that's not the king talking to us. That's us talking to the king. And even Kaddish and Kedusha, but Berchos Kohanim, there's no such thing. The king himself is giving a bracha. How can we not listen to it? A totally new, eye-opening way of viewing Dochening, of viewing Berchos Kohanim. Now says the Dirshu further, but what if you're davening in a minyan and you already heard, what if you already heard Dochening and you come into a shul while they're Dochening? Says the Ben Ish Chai, still, don't just not listen. The king's giving a bracha. Stop and listen. What if you're learning? Says Rishlei Mizalmin, still stop learning and stand and get the bracha. But you should not be mevatel Talmud Torah to Rabbim. I guess the case would be, let's say you're probably like the Kaisel, or let's say you're in one minyan, you're giving a shear, and the next minyan starts dochening, then you wouldn't stop the shear. V'chein, if you're learning Be'iyon, and by stopping, you're going to lose your mindset, says the Beis Baruch, you don't need to stop. So really giving us an eye-opening approach to what exactly is happening by Birchas Kohanim. We continue with Sif Chav Zayin, says the Mechaber. Koyin ein Rashi loisiv midai toy. Koyin is not able to anazon yoser al shlish psukim shel Birchas Kohanim more than the requisite 3 psukim. V'maisif over about Taisif, and if he adds on, he's ever about Taisif. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Sif Kotin Kuf Dalid Lashon Hagemar Shlomer Hoil V'Nais Netayr Rishus Tavarich. Oisif bracha achas mishali. Koyin should say, listen, Hashem gave me Rishus to give brachas. So you know what? I'm going to add on another bracha. For example, Hashem Kigoin, Hashem Elokeinu V'Zeicham Yosef Aleichem Kachem Elapon the Goymer Talmud Leimer Lo Yosiva. Don't add anything on. Masik Shema Gemara says the Gemara that Afilu Kvar Siyim Kol HaBrachas Gam Kin Over Blav. Even if he already did all the brachas and now he's adding on, it's still Baal Taisif. A Kol Shkem Loisivu B'Emsa Brachas, stand on something in the middle he should not do. V'Dav Kol Loisiv Paslik Acher Aser, says the Mishnah Berurah. It's only to add on another paslik more than the requisite Yivrecha V'Shmerecha etc. Aval Leimer Berchos Kohanim Kama upon him in 1 minyan. And now he's at the next minyan. So could the Kohen Dochen again? Says the Mishnah Berurah, yes. That is not Baal Taisif. Shei Baal Taisif, I see as a mitzvah shtei, and this is a yisoid in Baal Taisif. I put on tefillin in the morning. Can I put on tefillin again? Of course. I'm doing the same mitzvah 2 times. I'm not adding on to the mitzvah. Let's do more mitzvahs. If I add on, if I put on a shel rosh, a shel yad, and another shel yad, that would be adding on to the mitzvah. Perhaps the Sfarim amongst us are listening. What do you mean? We put on 2 shel roshes, 2 shel yads. Okay, let's not get caught up. This is to add. I guess the case would be that within our tefillin, within the parashiyos, you add an extra parsha. That would be the example of Al Taisif. But to do dochening again, that would be allowed. You can't do anything less. We remind yourself of the dirshu that we saw the other day, whether the Kehanim allowed to say Bruchim Tiyu after they dochen, you tell the Kehanim Yasher Koyach. Are they allowed to say Bruchim Tiyu? We saw it's Machlekes Achrayim, whether that's considered an extra bracha, and we saw that the makkah to be mekel and many kohanim are. We continue with Simcha of Chaz, says the Machaber, Koyin shenasei kappa of Koyin that dochen v'achol lebising nes acher matzah sibur shlo yigil berchas kohanim yochlis kappa v'acheres, like we just explained to the Mishnah Berurah, he's allowed to dochen again. And the Mishnah Berurah explains if gotten kovav. There's no Baal Taisa, they did a mitzvah 2 times. Very important. I mean, everything's important. But there's no chiyuv for a koyin to dochen once you're ready dochen. Koyin is no chiyuv. Which again, now we're getting involved in a big machlekes, a big sugya. If you don't have a chiyuv, are you allowed to make a bracha? How can I say Asher Kedishanu? Hashem commanded me. No, he didn't. You don't have a chiyuv. Says Mishmur, you're allowed to. That is a psak halacha. Koyin masal shvanasri. Imein shem koyin acher basic and middle of shvanasri. There's no other koyanim sarch lahafsik laus of dochen k'dei shlo ispatel. And I see his kapayim, the koyin should stop in the middle of his lunch shvanasri and go and dochen. V'ach shingmar and I see his kapayim, and after dochening here, me dochen v'yigim tefillasai, go back and finish my esrei. But if he in a person tefillah, if he is another kohen, then you should not stop. Unless they tell him to go up. We've seen this halach already. Or tell you or wash your hands. Because then even if there are other kohanim, because they told him to dochen, then you have the chiyuv. Then it is a chiyuv. Call makom. The masach at feel allows the dochen anytime a kohen is mafsek and is davening to come and dochen sarach lak or ragel of ksas b'soich tefillah, as we've seen many times. Say by ritzei, the kohen has to move his legs a little bit. Then einay rashi lalois magen ramashim advazi cannot go up to dochen on them. How will you rab mafak me bigger at this? Says our rabbi, no way. Shall have sig b'emsa hatfila filu b'amr lo yalei. Even if they tell you to go up, says El Rabba, you should not. Daf al gav. Did tefila d'Rabbanan he? What do you mean? Shvanasi is d'Rabbanan. Dochening's d'Oraisa. So El Rabba, what's your problem? Go up and dochen. Says the Mishnah Berurah mikol makoim. Hamidu chacham devreim afilu makom asay, as we've seen many times. Dinei d'Rabbanan apply even when there's a potential d'Oraisa. Unless he himself, the guy in the kohen in the middle of Israel has to up the berachas kehanim, then he could go dochen. You have to that called the hefsek shumein sim shalom. At that moment he's up to the same place. Then certainly zahir. Then he should be like a ragel of ksas. So when the kohen's up to Ritzei, the Shas is up to Ritzei, and he believes he's going to get up there, then he should move his legs a little bit right, and then go and dochen by dochen. As we've said many times, the kohen has to be careful, he's not going to mess up, he dams to the sitter, we'll have hachi, will be us, Ayin Sham, and we remind ourselves of the Ramesha, the steer Rameshas that we saw, the Ramesha discussed. What's the story with a Yisrael? Could a Yisrael, be mafsik to answer Amen? And we saw a stira in Rameshas, and we saw that the prevalent minhag is not to. And let's just see a few dirshus over here. Says the dirshu. Afilu kvarsim kol habrachos, kan came over belav. No, here it is. Number 105. What's this Baal Taisif? Says Taisif Rosh Hashanah. By Tekiyos, by Rosh Hashanah, we add on so many Tekiyos. So it's the same reason that you're doing the mitzvah again. You're not adding on to the mitzvah. And obviously, in the Lomdos, what the difference is, it is difficult. Number 106 says Dirshu, an interesting day. And what if the Kohen missed a word? Says the Aruch HaShulchan, he's not Yotzei. Why? Because Kaisav Aruch is the Ikuva and he's missing a word. Kohen that begins Berachas Kehanim before nighttime and he finishes after says the Imek Bracha or Chazkal Roth, then he's over in Baal Tigra. Why? Because he's not Yotzei after Seitz Chavim, and it's like your Mechusar Bracha, and this would be relevant like Ne'ilah time in Eretz Yisrael, in which they dochen. You got to make sure to finish, of course, by Shkia, but certainly not to dochen after Teitzak Chavim. Number 108, Dirshu points out the Makar of the din that every time a Kohen dochens, he gets a mitzvah daraisa as maramintz, and we learned from, in the Makar that a Kohen can make the bracha asher kedishanu, even though he's not mechuyev the second time, because he doesn't have to, he's allowed to. This is like women, they make a bracha mitzvah zirman grama says maramintz, even though they're not mechuyev, they're bringing themselves into the chayiv, and therefore they can make a bracha. Certainly the kohanim, this would be like a woman that makes a bracha on Hallel, etc. L'maisa, the Sfardim do not do that, but the Maramintz is talking to us Ashkenazim. Mechaschinach says this is like tefillin. Torah says you only have to put on one time during the day, and still, if you every time you would put them on, you would get a separate mitzvah asasei, and you would make a bracha. Similarly over here by Birchas Kohanim. Now, why shouldn't the Kohanim finish their tefillah by the dochen? Says the Radvaz. Why? Because your entire tefillah has to be in one place. So again, it's just interesting, these halachas. The Kohen stopped the Shemona Esrei, went up to Dochen. Why doesn't he finish up there? Because the whole Shemona Esrei has to be in one place. Let's say Dochen took long enough, he could have finished his whole tefillah. Says the Rabba, go back to the beginning. Says the Pri Megadim. No, it's not called the Hefsek. Why? Because it's part of davening. And we will, and to Kohen's in the middle of Kriya Shema. If there's no other Kayanim, then you should go outside. Okay, we're going to stop over here. I'll pick it up for Sif Chav Tes Mitzvah Hashem in the next Shir.